thought I did a good job in pitching it. But this time I had the actual idea, the concept ready. I'd already done it before, so I knew what messages they could take away with. And so it was a much more specific ask than it was the first time around. Do your homework, do your research, know what you want out of it, but also know what the audience is going to get out of it.
Hey there, Pitches. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Pitched. I am your host, Angie Trueblood, a podcast guesting and hosting expert, and I am the founder of the Podwize Group, a concierge podcast interview booking agency. If you are an OG listener of the podcast, welcome back, my friend, and thank you for your support over the years. If you are new, I am excited to be welcoming you as a new listener. Thank you for being here. Now, today's conversation with Shawn Fink touches on an opportunity that I think many of us would love to have. I mean, I would love a paid speaking opportunity. I would love a keynote opportunity. And I would for sure love a paid keynote opportunity. So I think this is going to be a real hit and that you guys are going to get some really tangible takeaways from our conversation. She gets into all the details of how she landed or didn't land. I'm not spoiling it, the opportunity. But before we dig in, it is time for our podcast Love of the Week segment, as usual. So today's podcast, Love of the Week, actually goes out to a host that my team and I have worked with for years. Darla Powell hosts the Designed by Wingnut Social podcast, and we have had a number of clients guest on her show. Now, before you say, Angie, I'm not an interior designer, which is who her show is geared towards, hold up. The show itself, yes, is about how to accelerate your interior design and home brand business. However, the content of the show is applicable to most any professional service provider, which I know you as my listener are very likely to have. So our most recent client that was a guest on Designed by Wingnut Social is Tiffany Cagwin, and she chatted with Darla about how to battle burnout and prioritizing your health as a business owner. That aired back on September 20th. And again, while the show itself speaks to interior designers, the episodes like this one, burnout and prioritizing your health, especially this time of the year, my friend, is super relevant to those of us that own a business. So her actual business is a social media agency for interior designers. And so the show covers content around social media, brand partnerships, profitability, and a lot more. So I encourage you to hop over, give her a follow, and then listen after this show is over. She has built an insanely engaged audience over the years, in part due to her authenticity. Her show is amazing, and her expertise. So go show Darla a little love, my friend. So who is visiting us this week to tell the story of pitching herself for a paid keynote opportunity? None other than Shawn Fink. So Shawn and I have run in the same circles for years, and I actually connected with her after she responded to a LinkedIn post when I was asking if anyone had an interesting story of pitching themselves for something that they might want to be featured as someone on the podcast. And she commented, and then we connected in the DMs, which is another reason, if you're not connected with me on LinkedIn, please go do that. She is actually a business strategist and courage coach for entrepreneurs and creators. She had a different business years ago, and we talk a little bit about that in this episode. But she has been coaching, creating, and empowering women primarily to understand and to embrace brave leadership for 10 years. So per usual, pay attention as we're going through this pitch to her takeaways of why this pitch worked or didn't work, so that you can learn and put some of that advice in play for your own pitches. Okay, without further ado, here is my conversation with Shawn. Shawn, I am so excited to welcome you to Pitched. Thank you for being willing to share your story with us.
Thank you. I always love to share stories because I think that's how we all become braver. And it's just a great way to pull back the curtain and look behind the scenes. So I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so let's dig in a little bit. So you have a story to tell us today, and I would love for you to kind of set it up for us, how you uncovered this opportunity and really what it was and what it seemed to mean to you on the front end when you were evaluating it.
Okay, great. I do most of my business online. I've been doing online business for 10 years, almost 11 full time. But, like everybody, sometimes I get the urge to kind of have more visibility and authority in my own community. And I have attended a local women's business group for many years, off and on. I have gone and felt frustrated that it wasn't tackling the topics that I have really wanted as a female entrepreneur. And over the years, I have subtly tried to get to be a presenter.
Okay.
And so
now, where are you located? You're in Pennsylvania,
this
right?
is in Pennsylvania. It's a small town, small community, but it's a group that is pretty powerful of powerful women in the community, entrepreneurs, leaders, CEOs, that sort of group. The opportunity that I saw recently is, and really over the last few years, is that I really wanted to speak to this group. That was I knew that it would have a room of people who would be good for my business. So there's a paid team that works with this group, and then there's like volunteers on a council, and then there's the people who attend.
Right.
Probably a couple of years ago, set up a coffee date with the paid staff person.
Okay.
Who met with me, took my information. We had a great conversation. It went nowhere. It went literally nowhere, which I was not real surprised about. But, it was what it was. And I kind of had this. Now, I do business strategy and courage coaching with my clients. So full confession, I was like, they hate me. Nobody likes me. Right. Like I was having all the thoughts. And so I just kind of dropped it and didn't really get back to it for a while. And then it came up again in my periphery, and I started to look into who was on this sort of the volunteer council, or, whatever the group is that decides who gets to be in the room.
Yeah. So is it, they meet monthly? Like what kind of event did you have your eye on?
Yeah. So, well, funny enough, it is an offspring of the chamber. We don't call it the chamber here, but it is an offspring of that. They actually, the paid staff is actually part of that group. Okay. The Economic Alliance is what it's actually called here. And they meet monthly. It's pretty formal. It has lunch, you sit at tables. People tend to get, fairly dressed up for it. So they've been doing a lot of panels lately. They hadn't actually had any keynotes, which I didn't know because I hadn't been. And I just thought maybe I would be a keynote or a speaker. I was really kind of thinking of it that way. So I looked at the group that is like the advisory board, I guess is really what they're called. And I recognized a name on there of a woman that I knew very well because she has actually brought me into her company to lead workshops and facilitate several times, not just once. It was several times. I had a very good working relationship with her company. And so I reached out to her via email and just was like, hey, I would love to talk to you about a concept that I would love to bring to this group. Would you be open to talking to it? So we, within a couple of weeks, we were on a Zoom call.
Okay. What was the concept that you wanted to bring to her?
My work is centered around the brave yes. It's what I discovered when I closed down my first business and was terrified. I was terrified and liberated at the same time, which is what the brave yes is. So I had a company called the Abundant Mama Project that was a membership community of about 200 people around the world. And that membership community lasted for eight full years. And I had outgrown it. I decided that it was time for me to do something different. Mm-hmm. And so I was journaling one day and I'm like, this feels like a brave yes. And I don't know where the words came from. It just like the scariest, most exciting thing that I had really, even more than quitting my job and going full time in business. It felt even scarier than that.
Yeah.
So that concept has resonated with a lot of people. A while ago, actually through our mutual friend, Rachel Cook, I was talking with one of her members, and she was like, I'd love for you to talk to my group. So we battled around some ideas and we're like, okay, well, what do you about this and what this? And we eventually came up with how to embrace a brave yes mindset. Mm-hmm. And so that was the concept. And the feedback, the reaction of this was so powerful that I was like, oh, I think I'm really onto something here. And so I decided that instead of just doing it that once, I wanted to present it to other groups. And so that's what I was trying to present to this woman. And so I told her about it. And, the funny thing was, I remember thinking, oh, I don't know. I think I love to work with entrepreneurs who have wild, outrageous ideas, like visionaries. Those are my people, right? So here I am, like bringing it like this really weird concept to this like very like
buttoned up.
Yes. Yeah. And the whole time she's just kind of, I think this is like the reaction I always get with people. Like, they're like, I don't know how to take this person, but they almost always are like, I love this. I can't wait to do something with it.
Yeah.
But the whole time I just felt like, oh, I don't know. I don't know if I'm getting this. This might be too much.
Yeah.
I do live in a pretty conservative area. I don't really sell to anybody in my community. That's not how I've done my business. So yeah, I kind of got off that call really thinking it was probably not going to go anywhere. But she said she would take it back to the group.
Okay. Was she asking questions? Was she giving feedback or just kind of deadpan listening?
No, she was asking questions. She was engaged.
Yeah.
Like I said, she has a women's group at her company. I have facilitated at least 4 or 5.
Okay. So she knew
for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she knows my work. She knows how I can engage a room.
Yeah.
That what I can do in a room, even on Zoom, is pretty impressive for people.
Yeah.
So she kind of felt like this was going to be the shakeup that they needed because they, that was like what she did convey, even though I couldn't quite tell if she loved the idea, but she was like, this could be interesting. And then she was also trying to like find fit. Like they do like a summit day where they bring them in a bunch of people. Like maybe I would fit there. I then sent her an email with a follow-up with a PDF, just a little bit more information about it so that she could then email that and forward that along. And then I was in waiting. And again, like I thought I did a good job in pitching it, but I also wasn't really sure that this particular audience was going to feed into my vision of, this brave yes idea. But within a couple of weeks, I would say I got an email, and the email wasn't like, we want to talk more. It was, okay, you're on. Does this date work? You'll be our first keynote in a long time. So, what do you need? And I think I think I did that in April of this year.
Okay. So was it for one of the big lunches, like the monthly meeting?
It was a monthly lunch. Mm-hmm.
And what do you think was the difference this time versus, because you said you had sort of mentioned it to various people within the organization over the years. Like, what do you think was different for the outcome?
Well, the first difference is that I had a very specific idea. Whereas I think the first time that I met with someone, through the coffee date, it was more of, kind of this is who I am and what I do. And perhaps I could be a speaker. Whereas this time I had the actual idea, the concept ready. I'd already done it before, so I knew what messages they could take away with. And so it was just a much more specific ask than it was the first time around.
Okay, this is so good. Because I just made the brave yes to switch our podcast to this format. And every interview has been so fun and eye-opening because the commonalities that we use inside of our business to pitch clients are always reflected in the stories that our guests are saying. So the specific idea, listeners, is the key. Like that is the first step. Shawn was not really pitching herself to come and generally speak. She was pitching the idea of what this topic and what this conversation, how it could impact the audience. You didn't leave it up to the committee who was deciding their programming to figure out what your topic would be. You were literally handing it to them on a silver platter.
Exactly.
All they had to decide was yes or no.
Right. And I know the people. I knew I've worked with thousands of women. I mean, I know their audience. I know the people. I know what they're thinking. I know what they're feeling. So I was able to really kind of address that in these conversations and in the document, just like the outcomes. And in that particular room, the audience is very passive. Mm-hmm. And it's actually one of the complaints. And they don't really ever change anything about it. Yeah. So my whole goal was I'm going to go in there and I am going to make this the most not passive space. They're going to be active. They are going to be engaged. They are going to be talking. They are going to be really fired up. That was, that's always what I want to do.
Yeah.
So it was so interesting to see what is typically just everybody sitting at their table, staring straight ahead, not talking, to seeing these women just come alive and start to really talk and interact. It was a really beautiful.
Well, I can picture it because I've been to these meetings.
Yes.
It's actually one of the reasons I haven't prioritized local networking events, because I do feel like sometimes you just go and I will be the one that will introduce myself to others and I make those connections, but it does seem like I'm attending something and I don't want to attend. Like I want to engage and I want to interact. Before we move forward though, I want to go back because you said there was a couple of reasons that you think it worked. Definitely the specific idea, but then I also know the second. I'm sure you do too.
Oh. The contact, the warm I mean, it was a very warm contact.
Yeah.
Somebody who had, like I said, not only hired me once, but repeatedly. And so when I saw her name on that list, I knew, okay, there's an in that I can actually really use.
Well, but you did the homework to find the list, right?
I did.
Where was the list? On the website?
On the website.
Email? Okay.
Yeah, on their website. It was just kind of looking through. And there were other people I knew. I'm very connected in my community. I was a journalist here for 10 years before I even became what I do now.
For sure.
So this person in particular I knew was probably the most open to getting me through the channels. And this is definitely channels. It was definitely not, you don't just get chosen.
No, not at all. Did you email her and say like, hey, Susie, I have an idea. Can we talk? Because I know a lot of our listeners will sometimes struggle with the idea of they will sometimes respectfully call it low hanging fruit. But like when you have a contact, when you have someone that knows someone that you want to know, often that person loves knowing that they can help you. But I think a lot of people struggle with the idea of, I don't know if I want to really like call in a favor. Like, especially in this online world, like my day is made when I can connect two people to one another. Maybe we can find that language and I can somehow include it.
I was like, hey, I saw that you are on, this particular advisory council, and I have a really great idea that I think would really go well. Would love to hop on a call and just tell you about it. Do you have like 15 minutes? I can just, give you the overview.
You don't need to dance around the issue either. People are busy. You can respectfully say, I have an idea that I think would serve whomever. I'd love to chat with you about it. Would you be open to it?
Exactly. Yeah. Just to the point, not trying to sell it in the email because that's not going to work anyway. Just getting on that call and having that conversation.
So let's talk about the event. I'm getting from you that it probably went swimmingly well. What kind of impact did you see from the event?
Yeah. Well, as the Brave Yes coach, oh boy, it really just blew my confidence out of the water. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. It was so well received.
How do you know it was well received?
Tons of people coming up to talk to me at the end was really, that's the big thing.
Yeah.
part of what the magic of this particular speaking engagement is getting them to really self-identify where they are on what I call the Brave Yes spectrum. And so they are actually up moving, and then there's storytelling involved. Yeah. So it was really them sharing their own stories that I know, like we all just walk. I haven't done this yet where I'm just not like blown away by what people have done in their lives that's courageous, or why they are so afraid, or, and not, they're at that one level. Best thing that came out of it, clients.
Yeah. Did you share with them like, oh, if you want to work with me, this is how we could make that happen? Were you planting seeds along the way in the actual presentation?
Yes. I gave them a link to go to a handout, which was the Brave Yes Mindset checklist. And on that, there was a place also to book a call or learn more. So I got a lot of people on my email list from that. And the biggest, most amazing thing that happened from that, though, was another speaking event, another sort of banking institution. The CEO and president of that bank was in the room, and she contacted me on LinkedIn and was like, I just loved that so much. Can you come and work with my team?
Okay.
And so I did that. A couple months later, her team loved it so much because it was a half day. It wasn't just the keynote. Loved it so much that they want me to come back next year for these sort of like annual retreat type thing that they do. So it led to not only visibility in my own community, which is what, I was going for. And then it also led to more sales and more speaking events.
Yeah. Which just multiply from one another.
Right.
Yeah. The keynote itself, the speaking engagement itself, was not a paid opportunity, or it was?
Actually, it was.
That's what I thought.
I didn't do it for that, but it was, I did get paid. I didn't ask for a lot because I always think of that stuff as like my mission. It's like part of my work. But hey, it covered some travel expense to get across town and,
for sure. Well, and I feel like it also, I started charging a while back, like to come and speak in other people's groups. I feel like it elevates also how we view those opportunities as women. Yes. A lot of times it's something that we enjoy doing, but we can also get paid for things we enjoy doing, and we should when other people can't do it the way that we can. So I'm glad they paid you.
Yeah, I get paid more than I don't at this point with my speaking.
I love it so much because it shows exactly how one opportunity can lead to things that you just never could have pictured going into it.
Right. Well, it goes back to my work that I love to do with clients, which is don't be afraid to take these risks.
Yeah.
It's the big, scary things. And by the way, a keynote of a couple hundred people, that's not small. And we really need to keep putting ourselves out there. And so I think my lesson personally, and what listeners can say is like, go for it. Don't hold back, but, do your homework, do your research, know what you want out of it, but also know what the audience is going to get out of it.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. If people are listening and they're like, oh, I have these opportunities and I'm just so petrified and they need to find their brave yes, where can they connect with you, Shawn?
My website is shawnfink.com. That's always a good place to start, but I always love for people to book a call and let's just talk. But then also LinkedIn is always great. I do like to have just those direct messages with people. I also have a quiz that people can take. It's called Discover Your Entrepreneurial Courage Style.
Oh, wow.
Because I really do believe that you can use your default courage strength. It makes it so much easier. So that is shawnfink.com/entrepreneurial-courage.
Okay, cool. We'll link to all of that for sure. Thank you for this. This was perfect. I know our listeners are going to walk away with some real actionable takeaways. So what did you think? This was a good one. I love how proactive she was in finding a warm contact to connect with. We love that for sure. And how she pitched something very specific. As I think and listen back to our conversation, I don't think that without her really laying out a clear topic and why it would be relevant for that specific audience, I don't think the organizers would have ever been able to connect the dots on why she would be a great guest for them. So this is a really prime example of where specificity and pitching something specific for that audience is so, so important. I love it. All right, that's all for this episode. Do you have a pitch story that you would love to share? If so, you know where to connect with me. Shoot me a DM on LinkedIn. Tell me about it. And if it's a good fit, you might be an upcoming guest. All right, friend, until next time, be well, be visible, and get pitched. Thanks for listening to this episode of Pitched. If you would love to get pitched to be a guest on podcasts, we here at the Podwize Group would love to help you. We offer 2 primary services to support our clients in landing and converting podcast interviews. Whether you want to handle the pitching yourself or you'd like our team to do it all, hop on over to our site, thepodwizegroup.com/services to check out how we can help. If one of them suits your fancy, you can schedule a time to connect with me right there. I am so looking forward to connecting with you.